supplies and all that. So it's staffing, it's ongoing staffing. And again, that's pre-pandemic. It's already been lacking, and pandemic made it harder to recruit staff to come and support our residents.
Yeah. So the pandemic, in terms of, do you think that potential staff or hirees, I guess you could say, are like scared, or like are people just not coming to the field?
In the beginning, I see fear, and I see that with personal needs, whether they have to go on a medical leave or childcare, that kind of prevented them from coming to work.
Yeah.
And then the market has always been, like the labor market has been challenging even before COVID, because they don't get paid a lot, and it's a very hectic, stressful environment. We're working on a very heavy system to begin with. So because in the beginning of the first wave, there's a level of fear coming in, and they don't know that they can potentially catch the virus. And we don't actually have a very comprehensive plan of how to protect everyone, right? The vaccine was not available at that time. So there's that. And a lot of people that were in the industry also left the industry, or they were not allowed to come work on our site if they have a second employer, or they have a second workplace. Right. So that also kind of prevented them from coming to work. And then a lot of people just not willing to really enter the industry. And again, it's not just my department resources. I think just nursing, PSW, all that, dietary, basically stepping foot in a long-term care home is like not something people want at that time.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. So final obligation question. Do you feel like your organization lived up to its obligations to care partners? So family members or friends?
I think so. There are many times we made a lot of exceptions, going above and beyond to support them, whether it's emotionally, whether it's like their loved ones had COVID or not.
Right.
So yeah. Okay,
great. Yeah, I think you've already covered some of the ways that you guys were able to do that, so that's great. Okay, I think you've already touched on this about resources to provide care. How about, so throughout the course of the pandemic, have you noticed a change in the motivation or the well-being of staff in the home?
Yes. Which is probably, I wouldn't say they're less motivated, but a lot of the staff are pretty burnt out because they've been just go. And, so their wellness, obviously that's been impacted. Again, personally, I don't know like everyone's situation, but I would assume if they have young ones at home doing remote learning, that could be quite stressful. And childcare, daycare, all that. And then plus coming to a quite stressful environment to work, and you have to care for someone else. Yeah. And last year, with the union, we made an agreement that staff can carry over their vacation days. If they didn't take them last year, they can carry it over this year. Okay. And I know a lot of the nurses and personal support worker had carried over more than 4 weeks.
Wow.
That means they took absolutely no days off last year. Wow. And, it's another thing if they take days off this year, but thinking of like no days off last year, and they were willing to not take days off.
Right.
That I think it's still going to make a negative impact on their well-being. Absolutely. For sure.
And do you think this has had an impact on the quality of care provided to residents?
Yeah, for sure. I can see that a lot of people are getting frustrated easier. Because they don't know when this is going to end, right? So everyone's just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be doing this like for the next entire year again. And they were probably last year thinking that, things are going to be better for 2021, which, we're still trying to be optimistic, but in reality, it's like, it doesn't really look like things are really going to change.
Yeah.
right? So I think that if anything, their well-being and their thoughts are probably a lot more negative than last year because they had such high hopes for
Right.
this year. And then this
Right.
year, things are just not very promising.
Yeah. Sorry. My dog's poking his head through the door. It's just so distracting. He's so cute. Yeah, sorry. That's not an appropriate vibe for what you just said.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah, that's really hard. I think a shared feeling for a lot of us, these days.
Right. Everyone, not just long-term care home. I'm pretty sure anyone works remotely like yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I even heard it from my boyfriend that a lot of the people from his workplace are requesting to return to work for their own well-being.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's no longer, I think in the beginning it was fun staying at home
Yeah.
for a little bit. And then now they're like, so when can we, like people are actually now requesting to their HR department that they want to go back.
Wow. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's quite a time to be trying to work in any context, but absolutely long-term care has a unique, like extremeness to that experience, I think. Yeah. Okay. And, throughout the pandemic, have you personally faced any rules or policies that go against what you think is the right thing to do?
Like the ministry policy that I thought it was, sometimes like, what's the point? It was more like that side. But again, like I have though an assumption that at the same time I would be like, well, you know what? They have like the best scientists and the doctors on the committee. So, you know, there's probably a reason why these directives came in place, right? So I always just trust that. But there are times I'm like, well, what's the point? So like, for example, the directive has loosened up. So the residents are able to not just take compassion leave or medical leave, but they can actually go out for essential grocery shopping or social absence, which they can go home and then come back. But when they come back, they don't go into quarantine at all. So then my question is, so how is that any different? You know, they go home and they could spend time with 40 family members that are not vaccinated and not wearing masks, even though the directive says make sure the resident wear a mask or you give them a mask before they leave the home, but we can't control that. And even if they say it's a medical appointment, they could still go home after the medical appointment and do whatever they want. And then they come back and not be in quarantine for 14 days or 10 days. And they go back to the dining room and eat with everyone. Right. So then these are the directive. We're like, well, what's the point? Why don't we just open up the home and just let people to come visit, but get them to do a rapid testing, and see if they're positive or not. Because right now with all these restriction of essential caregivers, it's definitely putting us at a very awkward position that we're only restricting 2 visitors to come in. Right. So we're just like, what is the point? You know, we're limiting 2 people here or 1 at a time, but when they go out, it's like party with 40 people. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that doesn't really make sense. But of course we understand we at least want to limit the amount of people coming in to our long-term care home. So I kind of see that part, but at the same time, there's also no point of doing all that. Yeah. So yeah.
I could totally see that. Yeah. And how about any rules around, like, thinking back to the beginning, were there any rules or policies that you found like very, difficult to reinforce? Like on an emotional level more so?
Yeah, the indoor visitation last year or outdoor visitation, when we had the first reopening of doing outdoor visitation, it was 2-meter distancing, family members, only 1 family at a time can come visit, and it has to be social distancing. So that didn't work because I think at that time it was like July. A lot of the people who were in the community didn't even know what 2 meter distancing was.
Right.
And that was very obvious when we put the tape there and they're like, that's 2 meter, that's very far away. And I'm like, where have you been? Right? Like,
Yeah.
this is